of all of our stuff. So Jim Kirk starting at 421, which is it's 252 according to this watch right now. 421, 551, 721, and so on. We have our table populated, ready to go. Now the next step is to get this data into a complication that'll appear on our watch face. So we're going to switch over to complication controller.swift. And what we're going to do here is we're going to comment out, or rather, we're going to actually populate it with some sample data, and then from there, try and get the complication to appear. Now, what we'll do is we will comment this out. Sorry, we're going to comment this one out and create a proper stub for getting a complication to appear. All right. All right. So we're going to create a method to be func get placeholder template for complication, and then this will allow us to pre-populate our complication. So what we're going to do is we're going to say let template equal CLK complication. Now there's different types of complications. So complication, we're going to go with template. Now the complication is already predefined for the watch. There's only a limited number of complications you can do. The particular one we're going to play with is called template modular large standby. Large standard body. And then we're going to populate it with some raw data. So we'll say template dot header text provider. So there's 3 lines here. So first line is the header text, which will have a bolded piece of information there. So we'll say CLK simple text provider. We're going to pre-populate it with some hard-coded text. So text will be header message, just so we can see it. Then we'll say template.body1. So this body 1 and body 2, we're going to do both. We'll start with body 1 provider equals CLK simple text provider. Text will be sub message. And then template.body2 will be equal to CLK simple text provider text sub message. And our goal is just to be able to see this. And finally, we'll say handler template, just to get it to appear. So now with this, let's try and get it to appear. Now there's the most challenging part, because this will not work right out of the box. It's been known to be very painful to do. All right, but before we actually run this, we have to go back to the top of the file and import WatchKit. So here's the thing, we have ClockKit and we have WatchKit. We're going to take advantage of the watch functionality, but it's not added by default to a complication controller. Complication controllers are heavily dependent on the ClockKit framework. So we need to add that as well. Now, we're going to try running this. And we shouldn't see really any relevant change other than our home page appearing. All right, now the challenge we've been having here is that we want to get the complication to appear on our watch. And right now what we're seeing here is timer, but when we go to watch, the watch app, the one way to do it is to just choose modular, because that's the face we want, and in middle we want it to appear in middle, but we don't see it here. We're looking for W9 watch complication, not W10. So I'm going to switch it to timer, keep it at timer. But there is an alternative. There is an alternative. So what we can do is we can actually access our choice of complications here directly through the watch. And so since it's up there, we already ran it, it's there, we can go to hardware. We want to actually get the customize option. So to do that, we have to press hard on the watch, or long press on the watch, or deep press as it's called. So we're going to say touch presser, choose deep press, and then somewhere up here where it's empty space, we're going to press and hold, and we'll come to customize. Now to do customize, it won't work right like that, right? So we actually have to go back to hardware, go to touch presser, shallow press, then we can hit customize. And by default, you may see something like this, where the entire screen is customizable. Now, from your simulator, you just do a 2-finger swipe up, don't press down, and it'll change the color. So that's one way to do customization. But I'm going to swipe right so I can customize a timer, and I'll do a 2-finger swipe up, and look, there's W9 watch complication right there, right? Amongst others, the weather, workout, and so on. And I deactivated W10 watch complication, but you would see that here too. So I'm going to choose W9 watch complication, and now I guess I'll hit home, and I'll hit home again. There we go, W9 watch complication, but it doesn't appear here. So there's a little bit of issue between communicating with the watch and the simulator. It's a bit of a headache, but at least we've got the complication to appear. So now what we're going to do is we're going to focus primarily on getting the data to appear for our complication. So to do that, we're going to focus back on our complication controller. So now we're going to go back to our complication controller. We'll start back at the list of methods that are here. And what we want to do is we want to say get supported travel directions. It's already pre-populated. This will allow us to customize if we're going to use the digital crown to go forward in time or backward in time for our particular complication to show events before or after. I'm going to leave it alone, so we're going to give the option of going forward and backward. It'll just stay at the first item. It won't go any further back in time because there's nothing to go back in time for. Now the second one says get timeline start date. And for this, I'm going to set the start date to be our current date and time. So I'm going to modify this to say let current date equal date. And then handler will pass in current date. All right, and so that way we're going to start off at the beginning. Then the next step is time travel. So we're going to limit the time travel max to be 1 day from now. Right? You can not, but we're just to illustrate how we can do it. Let's do it that way. So we're going to say for get timeline end date, we're going to maximize our time travel on the digital crown by saying var current date equals date, and then current date dot adding time interval. Now we want to say 1 day, so 24 hours times 60 minutes per hour times 60 seconds per minute, because we pass in by seconds. And then what we're going to say is handler will be current date. All right. Now, the next one will be get privacy behavior. And this is optional. We can, if we wanted to prevent this data from appearing on a lock screen, we could modify it, but we're going to leave it alone. And now we're going to get into our population or populating the entries for the timeline. All right. So we have here get timeline entries, and that leads us back to our placeholder templates. These are the final two methods that we'll play around with there. And so we're going to use this method just to populate that very first item. All right. So we're going to call the handler with the current timeline entry. So we're going to say if complication dot family is modular large. Now this allows us to narrow down which complications we're going to allow this code for by using complication.family and choosing which particular complication we'll work with. So we're going to say let my delegate. So we're going to grab the extension delegate here, or aka the app delegate of the watch. Shared dot delegate as extension delegate. We'll say let template equal CLK complication template modular large standard body. Let date formatter equal date formatter, all cap or capital D, and say date formatter dot date format is equal to hours and minutes. And now what we're going to do is we're going to populate everything. So first thing we're handling here is the date, sorry, the from and tos. And so now, well, actually what we'll do is we won't even put the to. We're going to put the title, the speaker, and the from, and that's it. That'll be all. So we're going to say let time string equal date formatter dot string from my delegate dot programs of 0. So first item in the list dot from. One too many brackets. There. And actually one too many froms. Alright, so that's our time string. Now we can populate everything. So we're going to say template dot header text provider equals CLK simple text provider of text, which will be my delegate dot programs of 0 dot title. And then we're going to say template dot body 1 text provider equals CLK simple text provider text for my delegate dot programs of 0 dot speaker. And finally template dot body 2 equals CLK simple text provider text, then my delegate dot programs of 0 dot from. And now we're actually going to, instead of doing the my delegate, we're going to do time string. Now we want to insert this into the timeline entry. So we're going to say let timeline entry equal CLK complication timeline entry of, and then date being my delegate dot programs of 0 dot from comma complication template template. And finally, handler will be passing in timeline entry. Now, for the else of this if, we're going to say handler nil. and there. All right, so now for the remaining items in the timeline, what we're going to do is we are going to create a method. So we're going to say func get list, returning back an array of CLK complication timeline entries. And we'll grab our extension delegate first. So we're going to say let my delegate equal wk extension dot shared dot delegate as extension delegate. Say var timeline entry array is equal to CLK complication timeline entry. So an array of that. We'll initialize it right off the bat. And we're going to say we're going to create a next date variable. So we're going to say var next date equals date of time interval since now. And then we'll say basically for every hour. So 60 times 60. Now we're going to say for index in 1 with 3 dots to 3. Now we're going to loop through the array for the remaining items. So not from 0 to 3, but from 1 to 3. So we'll say let template equal CLK complication template modular standard body, let date formatter, basically the same stuff we went through above. Date formatter dot date format will be hours and minutes. And then let time string equal date formatter dot string for, and then from my delegate dot programs of index dot from. And then we're going to populate everything else. So we're going to say template dot header text provider equals CLK simple text provider of text for my delegate dot programs of index dot title. Template dot body 1 text provider dot equals CLK simple text provider of, and then text is my delegate dot programs of index dot speaker. And then finally template dot body 2 is equal to CLK simple text provider of, and then text timeline. Sorry, time string. And then we're going to insert into our timeline entry. So to do that, we're going to say let timeline entry equal CLK complication timeline entry, where date is date. Sorry, my delegate dot programs of index dot from. template would just be template. And then timeline entry array dot append for timeline entry. There. So we've inserted, we're going to insert every array in. And next date equals next date dot adding time interval for 60 times 60. Then finally, return timeline entry array. Now, of course, we have a few errors. Let's clean those up. And there. Now everything looks swifty. No errors. Finally, we have two methods to play around with. And that is get timeline entries before date and after date. So they're just a little bit below us. And so now, what we're going to do is we're going to actually call and execute this. So we'll execute these two methods above. So we'll start with the before date. All right, we're going to put in a little if complication dot family is equal to dot modular large. We're only going to focus on that. And we'll say else handler nil. Otherwise, we'll say var timeline entry array is equal to an array of CLK complication timeline entry. And we'll say timeline entry array equals get list. And then finally, handler will be for timeline entry array. Right? And this will be the exact same code in the other method. So I'm just going to copy and paste. All right, and that's it. We should be able to give it a run. All right, and there it is. Now it actually appears. Now to get this to appear, we have to do a lot of fighting with this simulator. In fact, now you can see W9 watch complication appears here, and it appears here as well. We had to uninstall, reinstall. Like we had to go to W9 watch complication app, uninstall, right? Then reinstall, and just do this a few times, right? This would show up. We were stuck with this. So even removing that by using the long press and customize was another option as well. But it is a very big headache to get a complication to appear, especially in the simulator. And now it actually appears here, and it says header message, sub message. It just takes a bit of time. It'll actually come back and appear. And sometimes it takes a long time for it to appear, but here it is. And here is time travel. So two fingers swipe up and keep swiping, keep swiping. Eventually it'll trigger the next session. There's slow and steady, Mr. Spock. Old and boring, Mr. Scott. Why me with Uhura? And I can reverse in time. And that is time travel and how it works. So again, just two fingers swipe up and down, don't press on the trackpad, and that is all.